So I was on Instagram the other day and I saw this lady give some pretty terrible financial advice, but she had all the good intentions in the world. And the idea was, okay, she said home prices are going to get so expensive to the point that no one on this planet in the future is going to be able to afford it. And her solution was very simple. If you are a parent right now and you have some extra money, invest into some rental property, and then once your kid turns 18 or in their 20s, then you go ahead and you gift your kid that home. That way they can actually afford a home. I mean, there's this law called supply and demand. It's actually very simple to understand, but my whole concept is this, guys. Predictions are as good as me telling you, hey, there's going to be a hurricane. All you can do is just prepare for the worst, but you cannot control the results. So my point is, predictions are not bad, but the idea is that you're not gonna have any perfect predictions, because a few months ago we said, hey, the housing market is gonna keep going up. And now we're saying, hey, the housing market is gonna go down. And this reminds me of 2008. Everyone was saying, hey, home prices are never coming back down. They crash. Home prices are never coming back up. They go up. It's kind of like, so it just keeps changing back and forth. So my idea is, whenever you're looking to buy a property, it comes down to one factor, and that is your personal finances. So in this video right here, I'm going to tell you exactly how to know if you're actually able to afford a home, and what are the predictions that you actually care about and should care about, and which ones should you basically ignore overall. So as always, guys, like this video, and top out also subscribe and hit the bell to get notified. I have more content on the way on real estate, buying properties, and also investing into rental property coming soon in 2023. Now, the very first thing, guys, is very simple. There are three trends that we actually care about when it comes to the real estate market. And the very first one is real estate tends to go up in the future. Now, the idea is that, yeah, the real estate is a market, obviously, right? So in every single market, you're going to have ups and downs. It's just natural. But overall, it's not like it's declining in value. Overall, once you look at it from a perspective of longevity, long term, it tends to go up. That's the idea. So whenever you have market fluctuations, that's fine. That's a part of the game. And the real estate market usually always lags behind the stock market. And the answer is also very simple. It's because real estate market transactions, they usually take a lot longer to process. Like, you don't post a house today and tomorrow is done, unless it's COVID, okay? But the whole idea is, okay, usually it doesn't happen that way. So that's why it tends to lag behind the stock market. But overall, okay, if what we're thinking is real estate prices are never going to go back up, we're also assuming in some crazy sense population is not going to grow anymore. People won't have any disposable income. The aptitude to actually want to buy a home is not going to be non-existent. The economy in a way might even crash. The answer is long term, that's probably not going to happen. And the way I know is because we're looking at historical data which already exists. Now, number two, the second factor is basically the law of demand and supply. It's very simple to understand, okay? Let's say you have a business and you're selling, for example, golf balls. And your golf balls, all of a sudden, because there's scarcity and it's so hard to actually get the materials, you raise the prices to double what they used to be. People are still buying them, but guess what? They're very few. So then you raise the prices again. People are still buying them. You raise it again. People are still buying it. Now all of a sudden, you raise it one last time. People stop buying it. What do you have? A bunch of inventory. What are you going to do to sell them? You got to lower the price. It's just natural. So overall, in no way do I believe, for example, that home prices are going to get so expensive that absolutely no one can basically own a home. And in no way do I believe, for example, that in America, where we have, for example, a lot of land that's not developed yet, properties that are not developed yet either, and properties that need a bunch of remodeling, that no one on this planet except the rich are going to buy a home, okay? It just doesn't make any sense just through the simple law of supply and demand. If you have a lot of supply and you have a lot of demand, well, that's just a very weird statement to say it, okay? But if you have little supply and a lot of demand, prices go up. If you have a lot of supply and not enough demand because people cannot qualify to actually buy it, the answer is naturally the prices have to go down. So this theory that prices are gonna go up forever, no one's gonna be able to afford them? The answer is that's unlikely to actually happen. Now, the third thing is we have to understand market cycles. You know, people think that whenever they buy a home, they're going to live there forever, and that's something you actually want to avoid. And that's actually something that's actually very hard, because when you buy a home, I bought my first home like last year. And I know what it feels like when you buy a home and you're thinking like, I want this to be like this and this to be like that. And then a year later, that new house smell kind of wears off and you're like, maybe I should buy something else. Or maybe I should look into something else, okay? Usually, on average, people sell their homes every 9 years, okay? So it's not like whatever you buy, you're going to stay there permanently. So you have this constant cycle when it comes to real estate. Again, you're going to have ups and downs. But overall, the only trend you want to study is that basically, overall, they're going to keep going up in value as time passes. Now, it's kind of like, for example, the cigarette industry. We know that that industry is going to go down to the floor and it's going to plummet. That's a negative correlation that you basically don't want, but that's not happening in real estate. So whenever you hear, for example, hey, the market is not going to recover, or the market is going to recover, price, you know, at the end of the day, people have a job to do, and that's what they do, right? They try to get your attention. But how do you know exactly if you're actually able to afford a home from a financial, personal finance point of view, which basically means, can I actually afford a home? And what do I need to do to actually be able to afford a home? The first thing is, you gotta remember, this game that we're playing, which is like economics, and you're dealing with banks and third parties and real estate agents and all this stuff, the answer is there is a lot of factors in the transaction. You have the bank, you have yourself, you have the seller, you have the lawyers, you have a lot of people that basically make lives, okay? Basically make money off of these transactions. So overall, there's a lot of biases. And what I mean is, okay, you being able to buy a home and you being able to afford a home are two vastly different things. And what I mean is, when you go to a bank, they're going to tell you how much money they're able to lend you, okay? Because they want to make mortgages. That's what they love to do. But in order for you to understand the home you can actually afford to buy, the answer is simple. Can you afford to pay this home off as fast as possible? Or can you just afford the payments on the mortgage? That's different, okay? If I were to go ahead and buy $1 million home, and the first thing you say is, well, the payments are only $6,400. I can afford that. The answer is, but can you afford the $1 million home? If the answer is no, then no, you can't afford it, okay? I'm gonna tell you what to do when you can't afford a home later on in this video. But for right now, here are a few factors or a few steps you must take before you actually go ahead and buy a home. First of all, pay off your debts. When you have no debt, you have, for example, no one that's clinging to your cash flow. Your cash flow is the money you bring in. If you have no debt, if you're not paying somebody 18% or 8% or 4.5% over here with your student loan debt, the answer is you don't have to worry about those payments. The least amount of payments you basically have, the less you actually have to worry, because you have less people that own part of your money. Number two, have an emergency fund, okay? Whenever you buy a home, it's not like I bought a home, everything's perfect. No, something can happen in the home, can basically break. Something can happen with your job, you can get fired. Bad things happen to good people all the time. That's normal. So having, for example, a 3-month emergency fund kind of says, hey, I'm gonna be able to kind of pull through and have 3 months to figure this stuff out. So obviously that obviously means like you need to have at least 3 months worth of payments just to have it in there in case something happens to you. Preferably, you want 6 months, but 3 months is also fine. Then, you also want to be able, when it comes to the actual home, you want to be able to afford the home, to actually own the home. So what that basically means is, when you buy a home, 3 factors here. Your down payment, if you can put down anywhere from 10 to 20%, 20% is better, but sometimes 20% is a lot. So putting down 10% or 5% is not that bad, but 20% is better because you also avoid PMI. And that's something that Dave Ramsey is very big on, okay? But PMI is like cool stuff, you don't want to pay it, but if you can kind of get into a house you can afford, 5-10% down payment, not that bad either. 2, you also want to make sure that this home is no more than 33% of your monthly income net. So that basically means if you make, for example, $1,000 a month, 30% of that is $333, and that includes, for example, the mortgage, the maintenance, the taxes, the insurance, all those things associated with the home. Obviously, not including electricity and all that stuff. That's just basically just different. It's basically a bill. But overall, just make sure all those things added is no more than 1/3 of your monthly income. On top of that, the last factor is make sure you get a 15-year mortgage. And you might be asking me, Tommy, why the heck would I get a 15-year mortgage when I can get a 30-year mortgage, okay? The answer is very simple, okay? If you have a $1 million car, and you can't afford the payments to pay it off in 5 years. If I put it, for example, to 100 years, anyone can afford those payments, okay? But it doesn't mean you can actually afford the car. That's the idea, okay? So the whole purpose of a home is to be able to own it as fast as possible, to have security, and to also have part of your income actually, or part of your investment into that asset actually go up over time. But when you actually take into account what a house is, in reality, it's a liability when it's for personal use, because although the home value is increasing, guess what? You're also spending money on maintaining this property, the taxes, the insurance, and when you associate all those costs and what you would have had if you actually invested that money into the stock market, you probably would have made more. But having a home and actually own it, it gives you a lot of security. Now remember, when you buy a home and you can actually afford it, it's not gonna be the home you want, but it's the home you can afford. But then, like on average in 9-10 years, if you want to buy something different or turn that one into a rental property and then buy another one once that one's paid off, that's fine too, right? You can buy something better in the future. But the whole goal is make sure what you buy you can afford. It's not really what you want. Now, let's say for example, you did all the math, all the research, and you're like, Tommy, I don't think I can afford a home right now. So you have two options here. First option is you wait until you're actually able to afford it. That basically means you save up more money, you're a little more patient, and you just basically wait, all right? Because it doesn't make any sense to go ahead and impulse buy a home because it's very expensive. If you impulse buy a trip to Hawaii, I'll forgive you. But if you impulse buy a 30-year mortgage, it's hard for me to forgive you, but it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. A lot of folks, when they said, hey, oh my gosh, the pandemic is happening, and you have, for example, historically low interest rates, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into this whole thing. Guess what? Historical low interest rates, but you still can't afford it, it does not mean you should be able to buy it, all right? So the math is what you need to consider based on your personal budget. Second is your move, okay? That's something most people don't consider. But if you're living, for example, in a state like New York or California, you might say, you know what, I'm gonna trade a commute for me to actually be able to own a home. So I'll drive to work for an hour, but I'm actually able to actually own my home a lot faster. Or I'm actually gonna switch states. That's also a possibility. So again, the overall idea is for this video, guys, yeah, looking at headlines and looking at predictions, they're cool, they're entertaining, but overall, when you're actually going to make a financial decision that is lifelong committed, basically, the answer is you should make it based on your personal finances and based on how fast can I pay this thing off. And if everything goes to plan, you're done in 15 years. If you're actually able to be a little crazy and put more money in, you're done in less than 15 years. And that's a lot better than the average person for sure. So again, just remember, the goal of buying a home is to own a home. Predictions are great, but that's how you know if you're actually able to afford a home. When I bought my home, it was like $130K, but there were homes that were like $320,000. Could I afford it? Yeah. But I said, you know what? I'd rather actually buy this smaller home, invest the rest of the money, and be able to actually own my home like right then and there and pay cash for it. So it's a financial decision. It's not, for example, a fantasy decision. All right, guys? As always, guys, thanks for watching. Comment down below how, so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. And that is it. Comment down below if you agree with me, disagree with me. And by the way, remember, you buy a home when you need a home. Don't think that renting is a waste of money. It's just a service you pay for, all right? I don't see anybody trying to buy a plane or trying to buy a train or a bus. Like, no, it's just, you just use the service. Like, it's fine to rent while you build up to actually be able to afford the thing. It is fine, completely fine. You just don't want to have a lifetime paying somebody rent. That's not fine. As always, guys, peace out. Long term team out. Follow me on Instagram, TommyBryson. Another video is here. My face is here. Click subscribe, and as always, peace.